Hey Jess. All right, so we finally got all of the patients out. We have a couple minutes that we can sit down and talk and relax. And I know that that was kind of a goal of ours. Well, not kind of a goal, that was a goal of ours. And so there's a few things that I want to talk about. But first, let's talk about you. How do you feel like today went? Uh huh. Okay, awesome. And I agree with you 100%. I feel like your patient interactions are great. You really are able to talk to them, and I think that that's fantastic because part of being an athletic trainer is getting outside of our comfort zone, outside of our bubble, as you would like to call it, or as we call it. And being able to talk to a patient is extremely important, and having that kind of a relationship is fantastic. So I think that you do a great job of talking to those patients and really, you know, kind of trying to get in there and get yourself engaged. So a couple of things that I wanted to talk about today. First of all, great patient confirmation. When you were talking to Beth, you looked at her and you told her that the progression on her single leg exercises was going fantastic, and I saw Beth just light up. She thought that was amazing, and I'm really proud of you for that. I think that's a really good thing for you to focus on, and I think that's really awesome that you were able to give her that confirmation that she's actually making some progress. One thing I did notice that I think that we all could be better at sometimes, but specifically as a student that you could really start to get into the groove of is taking measurements. So I noticed that you had mentioned to Beth, let's take some measurements, see where you're at, and then we'll start our exercises. You just kind of looked at it, didn't measure it, and we've talked about it. It's really important for documentation, not only for us, for liability and so that we can track our progress, but it's also really important for Beth. It's important that she is able to take a good look at some of those things, because being able to look at her measurements and see those improvements sometimes does a lot more just because you can see the progress on paper. Some people, they look at it and they're like, wow, I don't feel like I'm making progress just physically looking at it. So being able to see those numbers is a really good thing. And that's great, and I'm really glad that you're starting to get into that. I'm really glad that you're starting to say, let's take these measurements, let's look at this, and you're asking those kinds of like history questions and stuff like that about their disability and what things are affecting them. One thing that I do want to talk about a little bit is when we're doing exercises with a patient, a lot of the times, especially when we're progressing the exercise or changing it, it's a really good idea to demonstrate it for them first, because sometimes they're unsure of how you want it done, and then I'm guilty of this. We just say, we're going to change it up this way, and then I don't demonstrate it, and then they personally go to try it, and you're like, no, let me fix you here. It kind of diminishes what the patient is trying to do. So sometimes the best way to show a patient what needs to be done is to demonstrate it. And so I would recommend just get in the habit of that. Get in the habit of saying, all right, today we're going to change your squat form. So we're going to go from doing double leg squat to a single leg squat, and show them how it's done. Show them proper form. Use those athletic training skills and those biomechanic skills that I know that you have, and really show them the proper form to do that, because you'll be helping them in the long run by showing them that proper form, and you're going to be improving their physical therapy. One thing I really wanted to hit though, that I really kind of noticed today was the cell phone usage. I know that we've talked about you can have your cell phone on you for emergencies, but I did notice that you started texting and things like that. I don't want to pry into your life. I do want to just remind you, however, that for HIPAA reasons, as well as compliance reasons with our athletes, we need to set an example. So, I would appreciate it if you would just make sure that the cell phone stays put away unless it's an absolute emergency. Because if you noticed, you picked up your phone, started playing with yours, and then Beth picked up hers, and she started playing with hers, and then, it cut into your rehab time. And a lot of the times we don't have a lot of time to be able to successfully complete our rehab because the patient has to leave, and sometimes that's our own fault because we get distracted with other things. So staying focused on the patient, putting the cell phone away, that's always a good idea. Is that all right? Are you okay with that? I mean, do you feel like I'm being unfair? Okay, good. I'm glad that we're having this conversation. I'm not mad at all. It's just something that I noticed. The last thing that I think we could really talk about that we're all guilty of is when there's always a second patient or a third patient in the room, sometimes, even if they know what they're doing, and we get into this habit of saying, you know what to do, go do your thing. Zach is one of those patients that we can look at him and we can tell him, hey, Zach, you know exactly what needs to be done today. Your file is over there. Grab it, do your thing, and come and see me when you're done. But instead of, picking up your cell phone when you did, maybe you could have looked at Zach and said, hey, Zach, how are your exercises going? Get him interacted, a lot of the time, sometimes patients need that interaction. As a matter of fact, they always need that interaction. And sadly, we don't have all the staff that we would like to have to be able to cover every single person that we see. But we can always take time out of our day to say hi to our patients and make sure that they're taken care of. But again, I'm really proud of you and the ability you have to talk to your patients and confirm that your patients are doing well. And I appreciate everything that you've been doing here. And I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I really look forward to working with you. So let's take a look at a couple of goals that we should set together, and let's get out of here. Let's go home. It's time to get out. So let's go over them.